Hello. Sure. All right. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. So today we are connected together for the Africa Matter Initiative workshop. There we go. So gonna wait a little bit, but yeah, I'm pretty excited to be able to talk about my my research. Can everybody hear me? Do I clear or do I need to speak up? All right, clear. All right, there's someone who just join in. Another person, a friend of mine. I'm just gonna start by, like I say, hello to everybody. Welcome to the African, the webinar. We're gonna talk about my dissertation that I actually completed last year. So briefly speaking, if you don't know me, my name is Dr. Jessica Foumena Kempton. So I am originally from the Republic of Cameroon. And I was born and raised there, and I have the privilege to pursue my higher education in the United States. So last year I received finally my doctorate degree in communication from Texas Tech. And I felt like it would be good to share a little bit, give a snapshot of, you know, what I done to share with my fellow, you know, African brother and sister. And I'm so privileged, and I thank the African Matter Initiative team for accepting me, for allowing me to do that right now. So it's 11, and I will go ahead and just say that I'm gonna first talk about why, how did I even go about getting to obtain my doctorate degree, and then briefly touch on what I've done and the results. I'm not gonna bore you with technical terms, but I'll say why it's important, then we're gonna proceed to questions. So thank you for your patience. So now, a few years ago, when I was pursuing my master's degree, like I stated earlier, I had the privilege to complete my higher education here in the United States. I went to Westminster College for my bachelor, and then I went to Baylor for a master, and I completed my doctorate at Texas Tech. So while I was at Baylor, I'm 100% communication person. So I was getting my master's degree, and I started blogging because I wanted to be a journalist at first, because I love to write. So I started blogging, writing about women in Africa, and I named my blog Women in Africa. I will show you how it looks like. So let's, right here, I'm gonna close this. So this is how it looks like. So it changed over the years. I'm not writing anymore, but it was more content even, and I wrote in French and in English. That's the last article, like you say, since 2018. So it was a bilingual blog. I even invited other young Africans to join with me to talk about women in Africa, because I wanted to have stories about women in Africa. I felt like the ones that were out there were not accurate enough, were not representing me as an African or as an African woman. And that went on while I was getting my my master at Baylor. And by the time I finished my master degree, I was very much interested into feminism. And if I was like, if I have to get a PhD, I have to talk about women in Africa. So fast forward, I became a PhD student at Texas Tech, and I focused my research work that produced the current dissertation. I wanted to do a research work that focused on women, that focused on Africa, that focused on African women, international communication. So I had a very strong feminist approach. And for those, is more an intellectual. So people who hear feminism, they get a little bit, they can get a little confused. But intellectually is a framework that make you focus on gender. So I apply a feminist lens in my research work for this dissertation. And one of the key points were talking about gender digital divide. And gender digital divide was one of the key concepts that I touched on. I want to kind of go back by saying another key figure, because I didn't want to bore you with myself, was Wangari Maathai, Dr. Wangari Maathai. She was an inspiration to me. And because she's truly a woman. I read her book called Envow, a memoir, 2007. And through her story, I felt inspired to get my doctorate degree, because another thing I need to highlight is that even though my dad got the doctorate degree in finance, my mom is highly educated, and they're still alive, God bless their heart. I don't remember growing up seeing a woman with a doctorate degree. I met men like my dad, a handful, but seeing a woman that's doctorate degree was impossible. And even when I pursued my graduate degree, I was not, it was the rare case, you know, I have to get my master level. So as a young African girl, I don't remember being even told I can get a doctorate degree. So reading the story of Dr. Wangari Maathai was very powerful to me. And in her time, how she even went through the personal hardship to become the intellectual woman she is. So I'm not sure how the audio gonna be, but if you go, I will share my screen again. Just kind of have a visual and on who Dr. Wangari Maathai is. This is from the YouTube channel of Nobel Peace Prize. She won one. So yeah, she is. Let me see. So that humanity stops threatening its life system. Right. So, I mean, you can go back on YouTube and on your time watch that. But if you, I don't know if you're able to see, but she was the very first African woman to win a Nobel Peace Prize, and very first woman to earn doctorate degree, I believe, in East Africa, and another, they like mentioned in the video, So I was like, I necessarily don't think I can achieve everything she did, but she was a source of inspiration. So keep that in mind, how we moving forward, but that was another source of inspiration, my mother, of course. So going to the research. So I'm going to my doctorate degree, uh, wondering what I want to do. I told the school I want to do something about about women communication. And what a better way to focus on digital communication, online media in these times, right? We have mobile phone, you have tablet, and we have connection, so internet connection all over the world. So I thought that it would be a good idea to focus on that, in that aspect. So based on my research, I found out that internet has been used by marginalized groups to empower themselves. And when we say marginalized group, it's not a negative term, but it's a term that just means that a certain group of people don't have the same opportunity than the general population. And I think that we can safely say Africans and women, they don't have to be connected, but definitely African women in this, unfortunately, especially those residing on the continent, are marginalized. They're marginalized in different ways, especially when it comes to digital media. So, I decided to focus on that, but it was very broad, right? Like, how are you gonna figure out that? So I was a member of online platform called Walpulse. So that was my research site. So my research are truly a case study. So everything I've done that cannot blankly be put on African women, on Africa, but it was a case study. It was a focus, and say, let me focus on this online community that aim to empower women around the world. And so you have women from all over the world on wildpost.com. I will give you a view right in a few. And in that platform, women, like I said, from United States, from it's mostly English-speaking countries, from Kenya, from Afghanistan, different nationalities. I'm just guessing, but I mean, women from all over the world connect, write stories, share resources with each other. Of course, men are welcome, but the platform is focused on women empowerment. So I decided to do a thematic analysis of 46 stories written specifically by African women. I want to know what African women actually share on this platform. And also I interviewed 28 of them that were members. And I was myself an active member. Myself, I was part of that organization. It was recommended to me by, I will say, staff at Texas Tech. I say, I'm looking for an organization, but it was just afterwards that I thought of it as like a research site. But I really like it. So I really like wallpost.com because I felt like it's a safe place for women to, that's what we were, to share the stories. I'm gonna share my screen again. You can see what, I hope you can see that. So they change every year, they change the face, like the front page, but pretty much it's the same thing. They want women to come, free membership. You have to have an account to log in, even if you're a man. So this is mine. I'm not active anymore, but I did a few things there. You can see my photo. You can put your photo, your flag. Most people put the flag of the country. I won an award for my story called Letter to My 19 Years Old. So I really like the platform. I was invested. So stop share. So then, so I remember I say I did thematic analytical stories. I interview women. I had the permission, wallpost.com, of course, to do all that prior to my research work. And I'm so grateful for World Post to allow me to use the platform for my research. So the results of all the stories, speaking to the women, once I use online media, based on what I found, it's clear that World Post was a spatial, safe place for African women, so that they were my participants, to connect with others. They really like the fact that they can have like-minded women. And mind you, those women that were on that platform are already leaders on their own right. It just expanded the network. They wanted to be able to, let's say, somewhere in Yaoundé, Cameroon, she want to know what someone in Johannesburg, South Africa is, how is going on there, what they do about, education for girls, so they can find women that have the same vision for the people, or someone in, Boston, the United States. How do you even do that? What are the resources available? So they really like that platform, and also were able to share the childhood memories, the lived experience. This is how it is for me to be a woman somewhere, let me cite different country, in Ghana, in Ghana. So being a woman in Ghana, what that means for me, and you can comment. Many have said that the experiences they have as girls, they thought it was normal. And I'm gonna touch on the teams, but that's a little sad, like, because there's very hard stories that have been shared. And I have my own experiences too as a little girl from Cameroon, but some story I could not believe happened. So, and also there were good stories, bad stories, but above all, it was a safe place. I keep saying that, safe place for the women for these women to say, that's where I come from, that's what I want to do. And that's very important when you think of how we can use online media to empower women in a positive way. So the country that really came through in my research, once again, is a case study. I selected number of people were Central and West Africa, Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Nigeria, Sierra Leone. I'm not gonna cite everybody, but it's a very handful, so mostly English speaking. So once again, I did not look up to, it was mostly Sub-Saharan Africa that I focus on too, because once again, Africa is very diverse, as we know. But I think that overall, when I analyze the stories, I find out that African women want better healthcare for themselves and the girls. Another key theme that you may probably have noticed is still happening is the break the silence around menstruation. So that was one of the big stories out there, because a lot of women, have very traumatizing experiences as girls regarding menstruation. Thankfully, I'm not one of them, but still, I think that the topic is taboo and we need to break that taboo. So I take it a little personal too. Better healthcare and end gender-based violence against African girls and women. African women, that's one of the key points. They really think that we need to stop have violence against girls and women on the continent. And it's not just violence that are random, it's targeted to girls and women. And then I think another point that I was able to take from my thematic analysis is government, African government and community members should be held accountable. African women want the government and the community member, especially men, to be held accountable for the different things that are happening to girls and women. Improve gender equality across Africa. So as an overarching theme, they want gender equality across Africa. And I think we all do in a way, if you are part of this webinar. We want to know how can we make sure that women and girls across the continent can be in a better position the next few years. So, or even right now, it doesn't have to wait that long. We can do different things. So regarding the healthcare, I'm gonna go into details now. What does that mean to provide healthcare for to African girls and women? So one thing that I also kind of see around, and I have my personal opinion, sex education should be a little more on the front scene. So we need to educate our girls and our boys, young men, young girls, about sex education. We should, in that same breath, we should remove the stigma associated to sexually transmitted diseases. And that, of course, the first thing we think it's AIDS, but sexually transmitted disease, there's a bunch of them out there. So remove the stigma so people can not be ashamed to, take care of themselves when they are healed. Healthcare for African mothers must be a priority. I was very heartbroken to read stories of mothers being mistreated. So those women write the personal experience. And mind you, those stories are written generally by the woman herself, or she's the relative, or she's the friend. So it's at best someone experienced it or someone was a witness. Emotional abuse for girls and women. So that's another subtopic regarding healthcare, that the trauma that girls and women on the continent experience need to be acknowledged and need to be, we need to take care of our girls and the emotional state. So for example, when a woman gives birth, it's taken for granted. I mean, I'm not gonna generalize once again, but based on my research, there is not acknowledgement on the trauma that the woman went through with her body. Instead is, you know what, get over it, give me a boy, you gave me 2 girls right now. No respect, no care on the emotional state. So African girls and women need to be taking care of their health, mentally, physically. Break the silence around menstruation. Like I stated earlier, that's an important theme. So everybody has to be involved in that, starting with the mothers. So African mothers, I think that daughters, like I say myself, we need to have conversation. It starts at home. Mother and daughter relationship need to be improved. And mothers need to let the daughter know this is normal, a normal part of life, and there's no shame of being a girl now a woman. It's mark your womanhood in a way, even though it takes way much time to know what it means to be a woman. But I think it's important for mothers, according to those stories, to be proactive in how they address the topic of menstruation to their daughter. Moving on, African parents and educators must provide sanitary pads to girls. We need to, that goes again, once again, to the need for healthcare. So sanitary pad for girls, I mean, I didn't experience it, but it's awful, the stories where some have to miss school. The parent don't necessarily pay for the pad. The school doesn't have pad, so they have to miss school or use some dirty clothes. Very, very sad. And fathers who don't understand, some fathers seem not to understand that menstruation doesn't mean she had sex with a man. So that's another topic on its own that we need to address, and have mothers making sure that as a family, we support our African girls and young women. And gender-based violence. Now, we are very conservative as a continent when it comes to sex. And that the group that get the worst end of this are girls. So we have the unnecessary virginity test that's still happening. I mean, for me, it's just so backwards. I don't even know why that still exists. But based on the stories, some groups apparently, and this is not even to be me to say it's bad on the continent, but just to reveal what I found based on the story these African women I took the time to share with the world. So we need to stop, you know, hurting our girls because they are not virgin and maybe not potentially virgin. So that's need to end. And we don't do that to our boys. Boys are not hurt because even they have, or young men, they have a child. That doesn't happen. So why are we having that double standard for our African girls and young women? So female genital mutilation, rape, online abuse, we need to keep our girls and women safe. So female genital mutilation, it's the ablation of the women part for girls. Rape also, it's very, I repeat just to kind of make sure you get it, rape, online abuse. We need, those are all the things that target young women online, communities. You need to end. Domestic violence and forced marriage must be stopped, and victims need to be protected. So domestic violence, so that's another topic dear to my heart because I think we can't do it all in one day, but we need to start acknowledging that's not normal. Myself, I think that for men to even still have that ongoing, I know it's still happening, we need to stop because in Cameroon, for instance, only this year I had 2 stories of domestic violence where the woman lost her life. So it's very, very, very sad, but it's happening. Forced marriage and must be stopped. So those are some of the key points I was able to grasp from the end to the topic on the end gender-based violence. Now, like I said earlier, the African girls and women, that who took the time to write a story, they are leaders in their own rights. They want to change. They're not just complaining and saying this, oh, me, I'm a victim. No, they're taking actions and they're making sure that the community, the leaders in the community, primarily men, are aware of it. Maybe the fathers, maybe the husbands, they make sure to get that support. So hold African government community member accountable. So they're not afraid to call out the government. They're not afraid to protect the African, the female relative, to speak up for them, and to create organization that will help the female sister, daughter, relative to be protected. And also, I think that one key point we need to highlight, and I wanted to make sure that we all agree that women cannot do that by themselves. Men, when they get involved, they make a huge difference. So, and that's why I was able to get my doctorate degree, because if I have a father who did not believe in me, if I didn't have a father that told me you can be you can realize your dream, I will not be able to get all this degree to travel, to be able to go and think ahead and think further than just getting married and having children, that's great. But as women are human too, and they can aspire to be president. Why not? It's not a gender-based job, right? Being in politics, being a doctor, anyone can do that if they put their mind to in a way. So African men has father, has relative, has husband, has brothers can support those dreams. It's important. So that was an important key point. So improve gender equality across Africa is another theme that came across. Formal education is important. They really believe in education. And so like I said, they create non-profit organization. Together, African women believe they can make a difference, but they cannot do it by themselves. They have to have support from not only the sisters, but the men in their life, the men that also, whether they're related or not, believe in them. So it was it was a beautiful experience for me to see how sisterhood for African women still matter, and they don't want to be the only one just making the positive changes, and they are also very realistic about that, and they believe that by being part of this platform, writing the stories, voicing the opinion, voicing the story, especially because, like, remember, going back to the fact that I was blogging about women in Africa, I was so excited to say, there we go. Here's this place where I can see women who think like me, who want the same thing as I do, and they may go about different ways, but we share a common vision of making sure that we, as the leader of now, we're gonna make sure that we leave a better Africa to our African girls and boys, because it takes both gender to make it a better continent. So are those stories applying to all women across Africa? No, but I think it's a good reflection of what's happening and what had happened in the past and what should not happen for the future. So I hope that in a way, this little snapshot of my dissertation was pleasant to you. I'm gonna end here, and I will welcome any questions that the audience may have at this time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kempton. That was very interesting. It actually was a lot different to the idea that I had when initially reading the topic. So I understand that the research was focused on a specific group. However, my question is now, if we are to talk about women empowerment through digital storytelling throughout Africa in general, how does that look specifically for the rural areas? Like you said, it is something that could be seen as something for the elite or for the privileged who have that, but many communities in Africa still don't have electricity. Some don't have internet access. So although COVID is forcing everyone to go online now, what does the conversation look like for the rural communities?
Yeah, so you mentioned a key term, elite here, and it's true that maybe my background make me feel like it's not necessarily elite. These women that were in my research were not necessarily elite, in my opinion. They were somewhere in a rural area, but yeah, that's what we call the digital divide in rural Africa. And I think I don't know, I can't speak for the whole continent, but I think that to respond to your question, how do we begin the conversation? We need we have a lot of issues already at the rural level, but you'll be surprised that we have mobile phone in rural areas. My dad just told me that in our village, we're gonna have electricity. So things are changing. And whether you may be from South Africa, Cameroon, or where your village is located, it may look very different, but mobile phone, it's one of the key ways that Africans connect across the continent. They may not have the computer, the Wi-Fi, the mobile phone is widely used to do transaction. Many of us may be sending money at home, and then you have your mobile phone, or even in the country. So it's not a lost cause. It's happening. Mobile phone is a little different than the Western world, but I think Africans are definitely connected in a rural area to mobile phone based on my research, at least. So I hope that answers the question.
No, it really does. And I mean, if anyone else has a question, please feel free to share them in the chat while we go through the questions that we had prepared. And I absolutely love the fact that you are bringing to our attention that young people are empowered in that sense that they have mobile phones. I guess, like you said, it's just a matter of channeling them towards the right platforms where they can receive this kind of empowerment. But yeah, so the second question, also based on something you said that the young people you spoke to are already leaders. I absolutely love that. But we usually find that when we talk about women empowerment, especially for young girls, we are told that, oh, you're being a voice for the voiceless. And I believe that this is a misconception. So what do you think we can do to kind of change that misconception?
Yes. So the misconception is that Africans don't have voice, or that those who speak up don't have voice. Could you clarify, please?
No, I'm saying that it is the misconception is that these young people or these young women are the voiceless, that we are now being the voice of the voiceless. So I don't believe that that is accurate. But what is your opinion on that, actually, before I impose mine? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, of course, we all have different opinions based on the information we have at the moment, right? So I agree with you, and that's that mindset I had when I started the research, and humbling apologize to all these women, like, I'm so sorry, because not, even though I was born and raised, I have born and raised in Cameroon. Then I spent enough time here. I became an adult here. It's something that, how can I put it in the right way? It's a double wedge. It's a misconception, because once again we are bombarded by the Western way of seeing the world. I'm not pointing finger at anybody, but for instance, having this webinar is by young African for Africa. And that's what we need to do at this point. We can't just sit and wait for the world to help us to tell our stories. And to be honest, online media has helped us to do that. And as I was going that mindset, thinking, oh, these women, pour them and all that. And then they're my equal. They are very, some don't have, never went to higher education, some had, but the misconception comes from ourselves, Africans, where we don't communicate with each other enough to know what's someone next door is happening. So instead of saying, oh, well, it's other people's fault, no, we need to take that responsibility first and say, do I know enough what's happening to the neighboring countries? And even though we are so fed with what the Western world may be, because it's very dominant, like CNN, BBC, how can we do the lead up now that we are to change the narrative, right? So the voiceless is true. In the international level, African women, our voices are not always heard. But we are not voices also because do we really want to have our voice heard, even as a group? If yes, what can we do? And then, are we going to wait for people to hear our voice? Are we going to wait for them to validate us? Because this question has so many layers that I want just a call of action to, for example, African. That's why I really support this initiative in terms of making sure that we, as a group, when I say as a group, we're gonna have people supporting us, but we want a better Africa. We want African stories out there. Let's build those structure. Let's use what we have to make our story being heard. And these women use World Pulse as a trampoline, as a way of having the voice heard. And they successfully did that. And that's what they can do right now. So maybe we should together be more connected, use the tool we have to share our stories and help each other. But are we voiceless? Yes and no. Can we voice our voice? Yes, we can. But is the world ready to hear our voices? That's another story, because remember I mentioned blogging. I was so frustrated because all stories I heard were, you know, in Africa, women, they don't go to school. My mom is highly educated. So how come you say women are not educated? All right. In Africa, there's this, and it's just this stereotype that have been built up. And it's just now, I think, African themselves and the world start to understand that it's not one size fits all. It's a whole continent. I have to remind my friend an acquaintance that this is 50 plus country talking about when you say Africa. Please give me the name of the country or the region, because I'm not gonna let you just mentioning Africa as a monolithic group. We are so different in many ways. So I went all over on this question, but it's something we can do starting now, you know, and by making sure our voices are heard. And yeah, I think I did something, for example, with the dissertation, having that publication out there. Hopefully someone will know that, you know, African women are leaders. They have voices. That's something we can all do in our small ways.
I absolutely love everywhere you went with the answer, because I mean the slogan for Africa Matters initiative says that we are the ones we've been waiting for. I think that's very important in these conversations, that we understand that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We're not waiting for the West. We're not waiting for the North. We are the ones. But I think it's also very important where you went with it in saying, do we want to be heard? And it reminds me of the conversation we had last week, but this is not the time nor the place. But I also like what you said as well. That's why I'm saying I'm so glad you went everywhere with that answer, because you also spoke about telling our own stories. So in your opinion, how important is it that African women start telling their own stories to the world?
Yeah, that's why I did the research. I wanted to know. I wanted to know who are the other African women out there, because the the one I know, whether I didn't know on purpose. I grew up in a large family, and I know about my mom's story, at least as much I know. My aunt, my dad's side, my mom's side. That's what I know best. And then I have to rely on the media, right? Whatever it's been fed, maybe online, maybe to the national TV as I grew up. And sometimes I feel like I know so much about the rest of the world that, you know, my continent. And maybe I'm the one to blame. That's why I have to tell, like, what did I do to even look for it? That's why I talk about Dr. Wangari Maathai. And until recently, I was a little backsliding on that, but I was in this quest. I was thirsty to know more about African women. And that's how I came across Dr. Wangari Maathai. That's not something that at least I was younger when she won the Nobel Peace Prize, but I was in that place where I wanted to know which one are those African women out there that are making a difference on the continent, right? So, and remember, we're in a patriarchal society across the continent, men first. So it's it can be said the same for other societies, but we're talking about Africa right now. So we need to make sure that we as women, African women, we don't shy away from making sure that our voice are heard, telling our stories. And it doesn't mean that it has to be in a very vindicative way, but a very educational approach. I am a teacher. So I think that a lot of people may think, oh, what you're trying to prove. It's important that we tell as much as we know about the grand, our legend, our Papa, Nelson Mandela. We need to continue to talk about our mamas. You know, our mamas are doing so much, and we need to acknowledge them. We need to celebrate them. And the daughters that we are right now, or our mamas, we need to start. So I'm having those terms because I know it's African, it's a way of speaking, but there are many women out there. We are taught also as women to step back, to not have that front seat. I think there's a time and space for everybody, for everything to take place, but we as African women need to kind of not be shy from the spotlight, not be shy to say, this is my time now to celebrate my sister, myself, my daughter, and make sure that she receives the praises that she deserves. May it be even starting at home, you made a great meal. Not take it for granted. Like, okay, she's the one cooking. We know that. Maybe going to college. Oh wow, she graduated. Great job. So that's where I think we can start and go from and build on that. Go from there. So the story's gonna come when we start even acknowledging our contribution as women, because what a better ambassador than self say, I'm doing good, I'm doing great. What about you? So have that exchange. And if we don't fight for that narrative to change, most people will keep thinking that African women are helpless, hopeless, and just need help. Like everybody else, we need help. As everybody know, we can help, we can always welcome some help, but we are doctors, we are nurses, we are communication experts, we are teachers, we are mothers, we are all that and more. And we need to make sure people know that in the family circle first, because I know it starts in a family where what we do or our daughters do, our mothers do, we just put on the the rug and say that's normal. It's normal. Why should we even take time to do that? My dad is still very proud. For example, he called me Dr. Kempton. So that validates my person. Like, even though other people say that, the fact that my dad says that, for example, even after a year of graduation, it still makes me proud. I'm still his little girl that got that doctorate degree, and that makes me so happy. So anyone, another question?
Yes, of course. I am literally enjoying this so much. I'm even forgetting I should be asking questions. But the one question that I want to ask you is, taking into consideration that yes, a large amount of young girls in Africa now have cell phones. Most of the places now have electricity and all that. But still considering the realities of the research that you've done, as in the cultures, the traditions, and everything that exists within these spaces. Do you think that Africa as a whole is ready for digital storytelling as a means of empowering women?
Do I think digital storytelling or storytelling in general?
I think let's say digital, and then you can maybe let us know what's the difference between the two. Yeah.
Okay, the difference between it, because digital storytelling, we think in online media. Storytelling, I think most cultures, especially our African culture, I mean, I'm not a sociological historian right now, but the communication expert in me think that it's just the only difference now is online. As a continent, I think when I have whatever I know from the continent, I believe we are our ways of sharing is, people tell stories. They I grew up having relative knowing what's happening to me the same week. Everybody talk, everybody share. It's just we really we're a community where the group, what happened to everybody is important. So yeah, I think that is possible. I think that when you mention some technicality like electricity and power, we cannot really let those limitations stop us. It's something that we're just gonna have to use to make sure that we have our story told one another. So the urban, the rural areas have their own challenges, and telling stories will be a good way for African at least to start promoting what the continent is about, what they're about. And we need to overcome that sense of, oh, wow, that's what I've been saying, this about my country and I can't say anything good. I always make sure people leave me having not just a better, I don't want to say it's worse, but the more personal approach of what it means to be a Cameroonian child, what it meant to me to grow up in Cameroon, what it meant for me to experience the world through my Cameroonian viewpoints. I say in Cameroon, but I have a different background from one person to the next. So we need to validate what we have. And that's another thing, that whether we are on the continent or outside, let's not have others telling us that that's what I read in this book, so that's what you should tell me about Africa. You say, no, sorry, that's my experience. This is what I'm telling you about my South Africa. This is what I tell you about my Zambia. And thank you for reading this book, but that's someone else. You don't have even to downplay that book. You just say, I appreciate you read that book, but this is my Zambia, this is my Morocco, this is my Algeria, this is me, and go from there. Write blog, talk about it, walk around. I mean, well, I don't know, a lot of people may be a little, I don't want to be like insensitive, because I know I come from a little privileged place where there's certain thing I had, and other people didn't have that. But if you have the opportunity at this point to have those tools to promote a better Africa, like what Africa is, we should do that and not fall into the narrative of there's nothing good on the continent. There's nothing good about African women. We should say, no, we have difficulty like anyone else in the world, like, you know, in Asia, like in North America, but we also have something to offer, and it starts from within. So I didn't think no one would want me to do this research, but interesting enough, for university were willing to support me, and I'd have to choose one for my doctorate degree. And while I completed it, I got a lot of support. We need to make sure that we believe in ourselves, and then that we have something to offer and go from there. Because once again, Africa is gonna be okay if we start to do what we can now. We start to tell our stories. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much. There's a comment. I don't know if you want to read it or if I should read it for you.
Yeah.
There's a comment on the chat that says, I'm just going to read it. It says, hi, when you speak of women's stories, it might be helpful for women in Africa to know that many women in the US struggled as well. My mother got her PhD in English literature and taught at university level when very few married women did that. She also raised 4 children, me being the youngest. She paved the way for other women. And maybe in Africa, if African women know their struggles, this will help others who are following them. That might give them strength to face the challenges. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Kempton?
Yes, I think, yeah, thank you, Meg, for sharing. Yeah, that's a very good things to share your person. Once again, Meg share her own experience with us in how her mother got her PhD, was a mother. And yeah, we have more in common than we think. So I agree that women's stories are more alike than we think. So that's why I was excited about worldpost.com, because it was a platform where women can share the stories and realize that, hey, this is what you're doing, this is what's happening to you there in the United States, me here in Cameroon, in South Africa, in Kenya. I'm glad that I'm not by myself. So yes, I think women even in the United States need to know what, you know, women on the continent are going through too. Some are having the same experience as she described. My mom had her 4 kids while finishing her school, and some are married, some are not. So it's very good to thank you for sharing your story. It's good for for us together to know that as women, we have some commonalities. And as African women, we have more in common with other women around the world than we think.
That's very true. We are similar than we are different. And I would like to send a very heartfelt thank you to Dr. Kempton and to everyone who has joined this session. We have come to the end of our questions. So if you have a question, you can quickly send it through in the chat. Otherwise, the last question we have, and with this, afterwards, Dr. Kempton can maybe just give us her parting shot, and then we can go our separate ways and continue empowering women. But yeah, so my last question, and we've spoken briefly about this, but I think it's important to go back to it. It's to actually just ask, so what then do we do to ensure that while we are using these digital spaces, we are not furthering the digital divide, or basically even the rural and urban disadvantages and disconnections that already exist? So how do we ensure that moving forward, while using these platforms, we are cognizant in helping the yet still disadvantaged?
Oh, we have to speak to the ones in power in a way, because there's so much we can do at some point. When remember the team I mentioned, there was a team holding the African government and authorities accountable. So our leaders, our formal leaders, we need to ask more from them, ask them to take care of us in that regard. That would be my shortest answer, because digital divide, when it comes to urban and rural, is pretty universal in a ways that when urban areas tend to have more resources, as you know, has made all of us know. So the rural areas tend to be a little behind in many ways. So it's something that I will give that question to the Minister of Communication in every country of the continent. Say, make sure that we don't leave, let us not leave more African behind, as we already started 2020. Let's make sure there's electricity. The key thing is electricity, right? Like electricity is still even something that many don't have across the continent. And that's, as much as we want changes, it's not in a total power of the citizen, right? It's in the power of the authorities. Yeah, so I would like to just thank everybody for joining us for this webinar. I was very honored by your presence. I am available on LinkedIn. If you want to stay in touch with me, you can always Google Dr. Jessica Foumena Kempton. I'm sure something's gonna come up, but that's where I'm connected mostly, on LinkedIn. To ask me more questions and just know more about my dissertation. Is on Texatech dissertation section, but it's free, accessible, but access to the public. And I think that, yes, thank you to the organization for having me here. And I think that I applaud your effort for African Matter Initiative. I applaud your effort of trying, for not just trying, for doing this, because it takes time and resources to make sure that all this takes place. So long life to you, and all my best. So we're gonna end here. I don't know if you're gonna have a last word, but thank you so much, everybody. And until then, God bless you. And we can keep in touch through LinkedIn.